What I'm giving you is a reason to get up in the morning. I think everybody has the potential to be brilliant. I think we're all born brilliant, and then over time what happens is that we become conditioned to dim our light a bit. And I'm on a mission to help people shine brighter, because I truly believe that we all live our best life when we are living brilliantly. My marriage broke up, I was about to be made homeless, and I was coming to the end of my doctorate and I didn't have a job. And that was the point where I'm going, well, I didn't expect to be here. This is a really hideously, horribly sad, dark, tunnely place to be in, and it's tricky.
Jenny, hello, and thank you so much for coming to our podcast, and welcome.
Thank you very much. I am delighted to be here.
Thank you, we're so delighted to have you. So, tell us about your business and what is it that you do?
So, I am a positive communication specialist, and I help individuals, leaders and leaders with teams to have better conversations, so reclaim their brilliance through better conversations.
Wonderful. And you are a Brilliance Coach, is that it? So can you tell us more about that? What is a Brilliance Coach?
Exactly what I do. A Brilliance Coach is somebody who helps people understand who they are in order that they can have more effective conversations. Because if you think about it, every single relationship, whether it's professional, personal, is based on the conversations that we have. And I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that there have been many times in my life when I have got it hideously and hopelessly wrong.
I'm sure we all can relate to that, definitely. So tell us, why do we need a Brilliance Coach? Why?
I think everybody has the potential to be brilliant. I think we're all born brilliant, and then over time what happens is that we become conditioned either through the environment we're in, the friends that we have, the school that we're in, the culture that we live in, our environment, our friends, all of those things. We become conditioned to dim our light a bit. And I'm on a mission to help people shine brighter, because I truly believe that we all live our best life when we are living brilliantly.
Mm-hmm. And again, why is it so important to actually do that? Because there's so many people, they're just living their lives happily or not, but why is it that it is particularly important? And especially that you mentioned that you are focusing on the leaders, and why is it important?
I think for leaders particularly, they are leading teams of people, and what we want to, the world is a tricky place, isn't it? The workplace is tricky, people are tricky, and I think when we can be at our most purposeful, we are also at our most creative and productive. So from a commercial point of view, it's really, really important, because you want people to be giving of their best. And from a personal, individual point of view, it makes me really sad when I think of people who are going to work and their energy's low, they're going through the motions, they can't wait to retire, they've kind of abdicated from the world of work. That makes me really sad, because they're missing out. And I'm a passionate believer in people not missing out. So I want to make sure that people have the option to live their best life.
How do you help people who are like, they have their energy at their lowest, or they don't have much motivation, because I've seen it, in the world quite a lot, that people come to work because they just want to come to work, because they have to come to work, because they need to get paid, and then they're looking forward to their retirement, and then they're like, they still have 20 years, and then after that, and when that happens, then what? Are you going to sit in a corner and then wait for your life to end? And this is not the right way of living, is it? Because we only live once, and we need to make the most of it. So how do you help, people to think differently, or do something different?
I think the first thing is that people have to be open to the possibility. So you'll have heard very commonly used as an open mindset. So you have to be willing to think that there is a different way. Secondly, what happens is that we all have strengths, we all have things that we're good at, and we have been conditioned to think that success is hard, and that to be successful we have to work really hard, and it's a slog, and it's challenging, and it's difficult, and it's like climbing Mount Everest. And I think if we are using, quite often the things that we're really good at are the things that we find easy. And because we find them easy, we don't really value them. We take them for granted. We think that, well, if I can do it, everybody else can do it. And so we don't really value those things that we're good at. So my initial conversations with people are around, what are the things that you really love doing that bring you joy? Not whether they're work related, just what are the things that really bring you joy, that you, if you could do them all day, every day, you would do them. And people often, they know the answer, they just don't associate it with work. They don't associate it, they kind of think of it as a once in a while treat. Well, I could do this. So it's thinking about using the things that bring them joy and using those as transferably as you can into the world of work. Sometimes that means actually it's because you're in the wrong job. But if you're in the wrong job, but you don't know how to get the right one, you don't know what the right one looks like. So we're back to that positive conversation again. How do we have really positive conversations and explore possibilities, and then we create a really practical plan from there.
What has fear and courage got to do with this?
A lot. I think all of us as human beings are driven by fear, aren't we? Fear is a survival mechanism, and we are all frightened of something, whether that's, or more than one thing, whether we're frightened of failure, whether we're frightened of having real conversations, whether we're frightened of being wrong, failing, being abandoned, not being good enough. That we could spend hours listing people's fears, couldn't we? And I think quite often, again, what we're taught to do is to squash those fears and pretend that they're not there. And what that does is actually hold us back. We become kind of tied to our fears, whereas I prefer to look at what those fears are and kind of make friends with them, understand how they serve us, because they've kept us safe. Safe is another conversation, but they've kept us safe. So how have they served us? And actually, what if we were to do just a little bit differently? And that's where your courage comes in, is that the courage to believe that you can make those really small incremental changes, or enormous huge leaps, you get to choose, to do something differently and to change your life and to change your way of being.
There are people, a lot of people, who doing routines, and more often than not, these are the people who have found a comfort zone, and they're happy with it, or they're okay with it, not to say happy, but they're okay with it. They don't want to come out of it because of that fear of unknown, of what's going to happen. Is it a scary place out there if I move out of it? And that actually contributes a lot into, the decisions that you're going to make, into, I want to do something different. That willingness to do something different. has to start at some point. And if you're in that position of routine and comfort zone, more often than not, you don't even think about the need to coming out of that comfort zone. So how do we convince people, not even convince, but at least show the light to people who think like that there is something else out there which might be even more exciting, but you need to take that very first step. How can you do that? Because if you're in that comfort zone, you more often than not, you just don't want to come out of it.
I think there's the comfort. Your comfort zone is stretchy at the edges, is how I like to think of it. So it's not as fixed as we think it is. So that comfort zone, and quite often what happens if you say to somebody, if your comfort zone is a 3, then what they talk about, the things that they're frightened of, is what 10 looks like. And so the leap from 3 to 10 it will send you from your comfort zone into your panic zone, which is like, I can't do anything, I'm just stuck. I couldn't possibly even try. But if you're looking at, this is your comfort zone is a 3. Actually, what would a 4 look like? So it's almost like you're trying it on for size in a safe space. So coaching is a safe space to have those conversations. What would it look like? What would it feel like? What are the things I have to do? And you can choose to do little bits of it. So you're doing that. It's like wearing an elasticated waist on your trousers. You can have a nice lunch and it stretches a bit and it doesn't feel, you notice it's there, but it doesn't feel so uncomfortable that you have to take them off. So it is that ability to just little by little. And I think the biggest thing that keeps people in their comfort zone is that they're bored and they don't know, they haven't had the conversation about how could I do things differently, because they think they have to go to the 10 rather than 3.5 or 4.
Let's say that there is someone who is, bored of what they're doing now, and now they want to make some change. They come to you at some point in their life. Something happens that they come to you, because otherwise, why should they change? What is that something which is happening that makes them want to come to you and then ask for your help?
There are so many things that sometimes it's a tragedy. Something awful has happened, and they realise that the things that they felt were certain are no longer certain. Sometimes it's because they have read a book, watched a TV show, been to a film, had something happen to a friend. There are as many reasons why people suddenly decide they've had enough, or they want to do something differently, as there are, hours in a year. So I think it really depends very much on that. You're right, there's usually a trigger of some kind that makes people feel that now's the time to do it. I also think, speaking from my own personal experience, often it's been somebody I've heard speak, or somebody I've had a conversation with, or a tragedy, a situation that I found myself in where I thought, well, this wasn't what I planned. Here I am at the bottom, rock bottom. I don't think. Have I ever thought that? I don't think I've ever thought I don't have the resources, but I've certainly thought I don't know what. Throw my hands up. I don't know what to do with this. And again, it's that opportunity. None of us are ever alone. We might think we are, but there's always somebody who can help. And I don't mean fix it for you. That's not what this is about at all. It's about helping you, say, reclaim that brilliance from within, because we have everything we need within us. We just don't necessarily know where it is.
Thank you. Let's move back a little bit. How did you come up with that, with this idea? How did you start off, your work and your business?
I think it was a very wiggly, wiggly path. So my background is in health. Originally I trained as a sick children's nurse and a general nurse. So I worked in nursing and healthcare for 45 years. In lots and lots of different, the thing I loved about nursing as a career, and one of the reasons I chose it, was because there are so many possibilities. You could, travel the world. There are so many specialities, so many options to choose from, which is one of the reasons that I chose it as a career, and also because I wanted to help. I wanted to make a positive difference in the world. And as part of that, you have all of your practice really is based on, isn't it, conversation. So conversations with patients, conversations with colleagues, conversations with relatives. It's all about conversations, and when they work, they are incredibly powerful and can change the world. And when they don't, it's awful, and people are sad and angry and unhappy, and it doesn't work. So over a period of time, I became interested in coaching. I worked in leadership. I worked in training. One of my jobs was to help translate evidence into practice. There's a big black hole, so people do lots of research, and they will present the research and say, this is best practice, this is what the evidence says, and people in the workplace are going a bit like, yeah, but we've always done it this way, so why should we change? So part of my role was to bridge that gap between what the evidence was saying and the people who are going, yeah, whatever, we've always done it this way. And helping them understand why it was important to make the change, and how we could make those changes gradually, and be able to measure what difference they make. Because I think what people want to see is if I've made the change, however small it is, it's the so what question, isn't it? So what? What difference have I made? What difference has it made? And then from there, I got tired of working for other people, and decided that I could take all of those facets of what I'd learned over the years and put them together in this fabulous, sparkly package that was Genuine Consulting. And that's where we are now.
Wonderful. And you have a phrase that you use quite often, and that's Genergy.
Oh, my Genergy.
Tell us about that.
Genergy. So there are lots of coaches, aren't there? There are lots of coaches in the world. There are lots of people who are in learning and development. There are lots of people who are doing essentially what I do, except that. They don't have Genergy, and Genergy is the uniqueness that I bring, the infusion that I bring to whatever it is that I'm doing, and it comes from a really powerful self-belief. It comes from an open heart, and it comes from all of the values, the things that I stand for, the things I stand against, and so it's kind of it's my essence, if you like, encapsulated. And what I hope is that when people experience me, if they had to sum me up in a word, they'd go, "Ha, Genergy! That's what she brings into a room, into a program, into a wherever."
That's actually a very interesting, phrase that you've picked. And what you've also mentioned about the uniqueness of it is a key thing, isn't it? Because it's very important. No matter what you do, you bring your own uniqueness into whatever you do. Otherwise, you're just repeating somebody else's, work or job or whatever, isn't it? How often do you actually see that happening with people that you work with and who have come to you? Because to get to that mindset that, I am unique, and whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my own uniqueness into it, and it is important, and I am important. It gets time to get to that mindset. How are the people that actually you deal with, and where are they in that journey?
Oh, that's a difficult question. No, it isn't. Of course, 100%. I see it in all of them. I think, as ever, like you say, it takes time, it takes investment, it takes intention. So none of us, somebody said to me earlier today, oh, you're the master of what you do. And I went, oh, hang on a minute. I think any leader, any person who says, I'm done, is kind of fooling themselves, because none of us are done, are we? I think of brilliance as a lifelong endeavour. So it's something that the first step is understanding it. The second step is finding it. The third step is what we call buffing it. Is that you work on it every day for the rest of your life. So whether you work with me for the rest of your life, or whether you work with me for 6 months or a year or whatever it is, that time is dependent on the people who choose to work with me. But I think what I give them, or what they discover within themselves, is their way of being intentional about polishing, buffing that brilliance every day for as long as they're here in this life.
If you are to on this very topic, if you are to say something, who's like listening to this, or you're watching this at the moment, what would that thing be? Because again, knowing the fact that it is very important to find your uniqueness and know that you are important, and that is important, and this is who you are. And it takes time to get to that mindset. And sometimes people, unfortunately, don't ever get to that point. So what would be your piece of advice, or something that you would like to tell around this topic to people?
Just one thing. Oh, I think if I could share just one thing, it would be that we always have a choice. Even when we think we don't, we do. Doing nothing is a choice. Staying in your comfort zone is a choice. So what I would invite people to do is to have conversations about those choices, because even when you think that you have none, you do.
And how do you bring your uniqueness out? How do you find out about your uniqueness?
Through conversation. So either say, obviously, I would love to say, come and work with me, because I've had a lot of practice at helping people bring out their uniqueness. But I think there are many ways to start thinking about it. So the first thing is to acknowledge that you are uniquely brilliant, and that everybody's brilliance is individual to them. So, my birthstone is diamond, which is very handy because it goes with everything. And that's very sparkly. But actually, I also love pearls. So their luminosity is a much gentler. So I think one of the things that people say or that people do, is that when they're looking for unique brilliance, they look to others, and they'll say, well, I want to be like Taylor Swift, or I want to be like Oprah, or I want to be like, they have a role model, and there's nothing wrong with that to start with. But my conversations and my questions would be around, what is it about those people that resonate, that sparks with you? Because actually it's about identifying your very own uniqueness within you. So it's about asking good questions. It might be that people start to journal. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I love a bit of journaling, whether that's talking or whether it's writing. So asking yourself questions about what is it about you, and when you feel brave enough, back to courage again, asking other people what it is that they see in you. Because quite often we don't see ourselves as others see us, do we? Because we're often quite self-critical, and we focus on all the things that are wrong with us, that people have told us we're bad at, that we should do less of, or, oh, Jenny, you talk too much, you're too this, you're too that, you're too the other. All of those things that others have told us, those are the things that we focus on. But if you ask specifically what it is that people love about you, that they find inspiring or brilliant, they will share it. And again, my invitation is to receive it, because quite often we bat it away, don't we? So when somebody says, I think your warmth is really contagious, I always feel really welcome when I'm in your space, and our response is often, no, we bat it away. So the invitation, back to that choice, choose to accept when people give you a gift of telling you what they love about you, take it and look at it and celebrate it.
Why do we do that? Why do we, and you're absolutely right. But do you know psychologically why we do that? Why do we reject, kindness or, nice words, towards us?
It's that little voice inside that says, it's that conditioning of, and survival. It's a wall, it's self-preservation. And I think, again, it's years and years and years of conditioning. I was talking to somebody earlier in the week, and we were talking about wins and what was going well. And she said, I've got something really exciting to tell you. And then she went, well, it's not really that exciting. It's not really that big. And she kind of shrunk herself in. And we asked her what it was. And it was phenomenal. It was absolutely, amazingly, excitingly phenomenal. And I said, can I ask you why you did that? Why you shrunk it? You started off by going, I've got this fantastic thing to tell you. And then you shrunk it down. And she said, because I didn't want you to think I was boasting. So that's conditioning from somebody else's voice that she's hearing that says it's not okay to say, this is what I've achieved. This is amazing. And she said, I didn't until you share. She said, I didn't realise I was doing that. I was like, that's exactly what you were doing. So I think it's about self-preservation, and it's about conditioning and those behaviours. It's learned behaviour.
When did you find your uniqueness? And how, actually?
Well, I think, in common with many other people, I think I had it as a child. I think as a child I was really confident, and lots of people used to call me the sunshine girl. So that was that Genergy in infancy, I guess, in little, and I completely took it for granted, because you do when you're 6, don't you? And then, in common with many other people, I loved my work. I was fabulously fortunate to have 3 wonderful sons, and what happened over over time was that I became so busy at pleasing other people and putting other people's needs first, which I think many women, mothers, but not just them, but women are particularly good at putting everybody else's needs first. So I think it's fair to say that I lost who I was, and if you had asked me at that point in my life when what I wanted, what I needed, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. So that probably one of the lowest points in my life was when my marriage broke up. I was about to be made homeless, and I was coming to the end of my doctorate, and I didn't have a job. And that was the point where I'm going, well, I didn't expect to be here. This is a really hideously, horribly sad, awful, dark, tunnely place to be in, and it's tricky. I don't know what to do. I've never been in this situation, and it's not one thing, but three, and they're all hideous and they're all really hard, so I think it was a really gradual. Again, it's that's why I like little steps. It was a okay, what can I do today? What can I achieve? And I remember going to see my supervisor at the university and saying, I need to put my doctorate on hold. This terrible thing has happened, and I need to stop it. I need to, put it on hold. And she said no. And I was like, what? What do you mean no? And she said, one day you will thank me for this. She said, what I'm giving you is a reason to get up in the morning. So you talked earlier about that routine. And in that moment I was angry and resentful, and I didn't agree with her. I felt like, she'd basically, I was hanging with my fingernails on the edge of a cliff, and she'd got her foot on my hand and was about to stamp on it. But actually, she was absolutely right. And what she said was, it's doing those routine things that you don't have to think. She said, I get you can't be creative. It's not about writing. It's not about strategic thinking. It's not about any of that right now. It's about putting one foot in front of the other and doing those things that you know that you can do almost on autopilot to give you a reason to keep going. And I think those small steps meant that I had to really, really dig deep, and I had to find inner resources to get me through. And you don't know what you've got in there until you have to find them. And I also think I had the most amazing family and friends who were my support. They held me up while I swam upstream through treacle, and gradually, bit by bit, I followed a process, and I came out of the tunnel at the other end. And you suddenly wake up one morning, and it was in Oxford, and I had moved from Scotland to Oxford. I'd found a job, and I had a little flat, and I woke up one morning, and I had this really strange feeling, and I thought, oh. So I kind of sat with it a bit, and I kind of, examined it, and I thought, oh, I know what it is. I'm happy. This is what happy feels like. My shoulders aren't up around my ears. I'm happy. And then it happened the next day, and then it happened the next day, and it didn't happen every day. There were still some dippy bits, but that kind of feeling, and when you acknowledge it and you appreciate it and you go, oh, actually, I'd like a bit more of that, gradually that kind of, the sunshine came back out. And it was a process, and it took a long time. I'm still using that process, which is what I share with my clients. I'm still using that process every day. So it works.
This is brilliant, actually. Thank you very much for sharing that, because it's so inspiring, and it's very important as well, because it can happen to many of us. And it's nice to know that, you know, if you keep moving forward, even if it is, you know, as you said, you know, one small step at a time, but just put one step forward and not just sink into your, you know, the darkness which is happening to you. Eventually you'll see the light, and eventually you come out of it, and you come out of it even better and lighter. So,
and I think it came, you know, it came out of the blue. So, you know, life happens, doesn't it? Sometimes when we least expect it. It wasn't ever a position I expected to find myself in, as with many people. So I think when things, you know, life happens, things happen to us. And you're absolutely right. There were days when I thought, do you know what, I just want to sit in a cupboard. I don't want to go out. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to have to, you know, put a face on. So there were plenty of those days. And it's like, well, what can I do today to keep myself out of the cupboard? And actually maybe once in a while, sitting in a cupboard, sitting under the duvet, is absolutely fine.
You're actually a very great example of seeing that, you know, even if you have your low points, you can come back up again, and then you can be excited about life and excited about everything. So that's actually very good and inspiring. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Pleasure.
You've mentioned that, you know, along the way, of course, during that phase, your friends and your family were supporting you and helping you, you know, emotionally. As a whole, in general, to get to where you are now, did you have anyone who kind of like someone influential in your life, or some people who were influential in your life, or some things that were influential into making you who you are and doing what you're today?
Lots. I think my parents, I'm incredibly blessed that both of my parents are aged. They won't listen to this, I'll be all right. Aged, but incredibly wise, and we have always had a relationship where we could talk things through. So they taught me from a very early age how to have conversations, and how to listen, and how to think of other perspectives. So that was a brilliant piece of conditioning early on. We lived all over the world. My dad was an agricultural consultant, so I was incredibly fortunate to live in places in the world that you wouldn't necessarily go on holiday. And so I think that exposure to lots of different cultures and different ways of being, and being the only or one of very few white faces in a community, gives you a very different, from a very young age, gives you a very different perspective on living. So I think traveling from a young age gave me a great sense of adventure and exploration. And again, I started traveling by myself on aeroplanes when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
And it never occurred, I don't remember ever being frightened, or I just had this supreme confidence of youth. And I met so many interesting people on aeroplanes, because people wanted to talk to me, and I was always keen to talk to them. I met so many interesting people. It was a wonderful adventure. I never got lost on an aeroplane, and it was an amazing experience. So I think that was instrumental. I'm going to sneeze again. That was instrumental in my way of being, that kind of openness to listen to other people's perspectives and to share things that were, and to be curious about things I didn't understand, people's culture, people's traditions. So to ask questions about what was going on and why. So I think that made a huge difference. I went to boarding school in the UK because the places that we lived didn't have schools. So I came to school in the UK and it was a small school and it was a very special, it was in the Lake District, and that, I think, their culture and their way of being was very much you can do anything if you choose. Even though in those days, I think it was a long time ago, even in those days, the career options for women weren't that, huge. But I think that innate sense of self, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but that innate kind of sense of who you are and that you belong in the world and that you own your place within it, was really important. And so I thank school for that. And I've been incredibly lucky that I still have friends from school who I'm still close to, nursing friends. Again, I think when you go into healthcare at 18 and you're faced, I trained at Great Ormond Street, so the children that we looked after are some of the sickest children in the world. And I think some of the conversations that we had to have as very young women were incredibly difficult and challenging. And I think that develops you as a person and gives you incredible insight, but it also binds you together, so that the friends that you make, your nursing friends, are still my closest friends. We've been together through thick and thin, and I'm incredibly blessed with their wisdom. So I think those things have cemented the support that I have. Nobody, as I said earlier, none of us are alone. We can, again, it's a choice. You can choose that. I choose to surround myself with people whose energy is really positive, whose outlook on life might be very different from mine, but the essence of who they are and how they live is kind of positive energy.
Thank you very much for sharing all that. We are going to our golden question. If you are to give one piece of advice to anyone who is listening to this or watching this, that can be any advice, what would that be?
I think the advice I would share, and the great thing about advice is people are free to ignore it, aren't they? They can do what they like with it. So I think the greatest piece of advice that I can share is to have those conversations that you are avoiding. Have those conversations that you are thinking that you might have. Oh, I could. There's no perfect time, is there? The perfect time is now. None of us know how long we're here. None of us know what's around the corner. What we have is now. We have the present, and I think you deserve. We owe it. Each one of us owes it to ourselves to live each day to our fullest potential, because that's the best that we have, and that's what we deserve. So yeah, my advice would be, my invitation would be to think about how brilliant you're feeling right now. No judgment, just give yourself a score. And whatever that score is out of 10, if you're a 10, fabulous. If you're a 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, what makes it that? And what are the tiny things, the tiny facets that you're going to polish that will help you sparkle that little bit brighter tomorrow.
Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. Also to share with us, a lot of tips and advice. And I have to say, it's a true pleasure to actually have you here, because you have this ginormous amount of energy and positivity, and you happily share it with everyone. And I think it is fair to say that we can all feel your energy.
My job here is done. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you, so thank you so much for coming to our podcast.
Thank you. It's always a joy, isn't it, to be able to share your gift with others. So thank you. It's been an honour and a pleasure.
Thank you. The honour was all ours. Thank you.